Oh, what's going on, Game Leapers? This is Coach Eags, and in today's upload, we're going to be talking about the 10 best top laners for patch 12.7, which will be hitting the Rift in a few days' time, so this video is going to be very important in not only telling you the champions and the top laners who are going to be good, but we're also going to give you the rune page, the builds, the summoner spells, and the skill order to help you on your way. So if you enjoy all of this information and these countdown videos, make sure you let us know by leaving a like down below, and also consider checking out the GameLeap website in the description and comment section, because our videos on the website, they are made behind the scenes. You guys hear and sometimes see me on YouTube, but we have so much other content on the actual website for your benefit. Your season 12 goals, whatever they may be, our challenger players and coaches can help you achieve them. So check out those links and get signed up, and let's get into the top lane countdown. Now, starting off the countdown at number 10, funny how that works, we're going to talk about Singed, because guys, this champion is not only underrated in my opinion, but he is easily one of the most broken top laners, and kind of a new build that's come out is going Conqueror as your keystone, because I know lots of Singed players might want to run Predator, but Conqueror, because the stacking is back to 5 seconds, this synergizes really nicely with your poison. Then as far as your summoner spells go, if you take Flash and Ghost, the scaling you have with Ghost, and also the threat you have with Flash, so a Flash Fling when your jungler's nearby, it's pretty scary to lane against. And another thing that's going for Singed this season are the buffs to his items. So Rylai's Crystal Scepter is really cheap, 2600 gold. This is your first item after your desired boots. Then we're going to get a Demonic Embrace, and for Singed next patch, you might even be interested in the new Abyssal Mask, which is going to give you more stacking on the passive. So this could be an option, but to be honest, Force of Nature with the magic resist and the movement speed it gives you, that being such an important stat for Singed, is probably the go-to MR item. Now ahead of him at number 9, we have to talk about a champion who got buffed a couple of patches ago, and he is the ultimate low elo nightmare, and this is another champion who should also run Flash and Ghost, and this is none other than Darius. And thanks to the recent ultimate buff, it has made Darius a very scary laner once again, and when you pair this with Trinity Force, because what this is giving us is a lot of split pushing power, and also the Spellblade passive, it can also proc off our W, and the extra HP you can now get from Trinity Force is super nice as well, because this adds to our durability. So there's really not much else to say about Darius, it's just Darius. He is always going to be a strong 1v1er, and because of the ultimate buff, quite simply, that's exactly what he is right now, so he fills the number 9 position. Now beating him to number 8 is a champion who has benefited even more from Darius from recent changes the balance team have given out, and this is Rengar. And because of the changes to his Q, to his ferocity, it has seen Rengar actually take off as a top laner as well as a jungler. Now in the top lane, the rune page I'm going to recommend to you guys is to run Lethal Tempo. This makes you very scary in the early game, and the early game is really what's going to dictate how that game is going to go. You have to try to win it, so Lethal Tempo gives you the opportunity to do so, and when you pair this with Alacrity, the attack speed you have is out of this world. Now as far as your secondary tree, what you want to be doing is taking Bone Plating or Second Wind, depending on the matchup, and Revitalize. Revitalize is super important because this helps with our Grey health and also our W heal. But whatever you do guys in the top lane, please make sure if you're playing Rengar to take Flash and Ignite. We are about winning lane, we are about the 1v1 and stomping it, and while we're doing that, as far as our build goes, we want to build an Eclipse. The lethality, the damage, the lifesteal, the passive, all of these are very useful, but we're really getting it because the armor penetration in the mythic passive. This is really important for the top lane because lots of people are going to build armor, especially into a top lane Rengar, knowing that you're going to build attack damage. So this still gives us a nice early to mid game spike, but it secures our late game because we know we will have the armor penetration. Then we want to get cooldown boots and then an Essence Reaver, the Spellblade passive which procs on the Q, and the ability haste. Getting that ultimate cooldown down is super nice and will allow you to get more kills on the map. So Rengar might be a bit of a surprise inclusion, but honestly because of the changes, I don't think this is surprising at all, because if you've played against this, you will know just how strong it is. Now speaking of surprise inclusions, this one might be a bit of a surprise because in lower elos, this champion, because he's very difficult to play, tends not to have the best win rate. But the fact is this guys, if you can learn this champion and master him, Gangplank is easily one of the most dominant top laners we have. And if you've played against a good GP, you should know just how annoying this guy is to play against in lane. He really only has a few counters. If we think of champions like Akshan and Lucian because of their passes, or maybe Kalista or someone like Ryze, these ranged champions do well because they can hit his barrels. But in the top lane, most champions you play against will be melee champions and you just obliterate them. You can either decide to play like a ranged champion around your Q, or you can go super aggressive because of your powder kegs and your passive, and guess what? Your passive is getting buffed in 12.7, which is huge for you GP mains. So the damage is going up, which means that if you're going the build recommended on your screens, so with Trinity Force and then the Collector, quite interesting, but it's super useful because of the crit, the lethality, and the attack damage, and the passive as well as good. But yes, if you're not going to go Prowler's Claw Claw, an Essence Reaver, and full-on crit damage GP, the extra damage you get just makes a tankier version of GP more viable, which might be more consistent and reliable to play. And remember, GP received some buffs earlier in the season, his Q cooldown going down being the bigger one. And just one final note on GP, I know this page is recommending Flash and Ignite, which to be honest is actually a pretty alpha move, and I think it could be good in matchups where you should just win. But do just think about taking Teleport into some matchups where you're not that confident, because Teleport will keep you in the game thanks to TPing back to the tower. You're not going to miss golden experience from missing minion waves. Now coming in at number 6 on the countdown is a champion who's getting tweaked a little bit in 12.7, and this is Pantheon. And in my opinion, Pantheon's best role will be in the mid lane next patch, but if you want to play him in the top lane, there is no reason stopping you, because one of the nice changes coming into Pantheon in 12.7 is the fact that when you just tap your Q, so there's no charge time, the distance your Q travels is actually increasing by 50 units. And in the top lane, this will be super useful if you're poking someone under the tower, if you're fighting the enemy champion, if you're pressuring them when they go for a CS, this is going to be useful. Now the width may be a little smaller, but champions in the top lane have pretty big heads, so you should be able to land them anyway. But that's not all, because your E or Aegis Assault, this is no longer going to slow you when you are moving backwards. So if you're tower diving the enemy top laner or trying to get out of a gank yourself, this is actually going to be huge, and your Grand Staff or your ultimate, the full time is actually 0.25 seconds faster. So the enemy champions will have less time to actually react to this, so Pantheon players, you guys in 12.7 are definitely going to get more kills. And even though your health over 5 seconds, the regeneration, which will affect your sustain a little bit in the top lane, but I think it's well worth giving that up for everything else you're getting in 12.7. Just be sure to build an Eclipse for the armor penetration passive, because like I said, champions in the top lane are going to build armor against you. The armor pen is essential. And kind of like Pantheon, starting off the top 5 of this countdown is a champion who is going to benefit from some very big buffs in 12.7, and this is Wukong, who is going to be super happy with the 12.7 changes, and there is good reason for it. Your Q's cooldown is going down by a second at each rank. Your W's cooldown is going down at later ranks, which isn't the most important because you will be maxing this last, but here's the thing. Your W is now, the dash inside of it, is going to allow you to go over walls. Easily the biggest change of the whole bunch next patch. This means in the top lane you can jump over the alcove wall, you can jump over the walls to Rift Herald, to blue buffs. It just makes you way more mobile, especially when you're team fighting around barons and dragons. There are lots of walls, there's lots of terrain. This is going to help you so much, and I'd love to know anyone's thoughts on this change to Wukong in the comment section. But there are still more buffs. So your E, your monster modification damage, this is increasing, so your jungle clear is going to be better. Kind of useful for top lane if you ever wanted to farm Gromp or Krugs or any jungle camp, maybe even Rift Herald. And we also have the E's AP ratio, which is increasing. So that's certainly not the most impactful change, but the fact you can W over walls and your Q's cooldown is going down by a full second, these are huge for the Monkey King, and we'll definitely see him be picked more next patch. Now ahead of Wukong, coming in at number 4 on the countdown, we have one of those champions who loves to brawl it out with the enemy top laner, and you could even say that this champion, especially in the early game, is the best 1v1er on the Rift. So if you want to dumpster lane, if you want to dumpster your opponent, make them retire, Trundle is the pick for you. So we're going lethal tempo, because the tempo stacking, it procs off our chomp, our Q, which we are maxing first. But the real power for Trundle in the top lane, guys, lies in the fact that you can build a whole breaker and really benefit from the stats it gives you. So if you're building Divine Sundra and then building Hull Breaker, this gives you so much split pushing power. But do be careful about going Divine Sundra, because some games it might even be worth to go Trinity Force, especially if you're snowballing or against a champion who isn't going to build that much HP, because Divine Sundra is really the tank shred item. And I know this page is recommending you guys to go teleport with your flash. Please do not. Go Ignite. You are about the 1v1, you are about stomping lane, and because of the teleport change at the start of the season, it is just not worth going anymore, especially in solo queue where it's all about yourself. Now starting off the top 3, we have one of the most consistent top laners. So if you don't want to play one of these coin flippy, snowbally, where one kill means everything type of champions, then one champion that will definitely suit your fancy is Shen. And this champion, ever since teleport got changed in 12.1, so you can only TP to your towers in the first 14 minutes, and in the early game the cooldown for teleport is longer. This means that for Shen, because of his global ultimate, his value goes through the roof. This is why we're going to be running Ultimate Hunter in our runes, because we want to get as many Stand Uniteds off as possible. Just make sure in the resolve tree you are taking Shield Bash, because this works with your passive and obviously your ultimate shield as well, so you will be protecting your teammates even more when you ult in. Just like Trundle though, make sure you run Ignite, because Shen's laning phase is actually very underrated underrated, especially if your jungler is there ganking for you. If you can land your Shadow Dash, the Taunt, if you have your Ignite off cooldown, it is pretty much a guaranteed kill. Now ahead of Shen coming in at number 2, this champion has been on this countdown for God knows how long, and this is Riven. And hopefully I don't really have to explain myself here, because Riven has been super strong ever since Riot buffed her ease cooldown, so they reduced it by 2 seconds, and ever since Riot changed those bruiser items in 12.3. So if you guys remember, there was a Gore Drinker change, a Death Stance change, a Moira Malmortius change, a Black Cleaver change. Pretty much all of these items got more ability haste and more attack damage. They may have lost a little bit of tankiness, but for Riven, AD, and ability haste, these are the 2 biggest stats, and that's why this champion, look at these stats for me, this is in Platinum and above. So if we look at the Flash and Ignite column on the right, almost 58,000 matches, and Riven players have above a 52% win rate. I thought this champion was meant to be difficult, to have a high skill ceiling, and she does. It takes a while to learn how to animation cancel, to learn all the matchups, to learn all the mechanics, but she's just so broken at the moment that you can pretty much first time Riven and have a very good chance of winning. You could very well put this champion at number 1, so until Riven gets directly nerfed, or until her items or runes get giga nerfed, this champion is probably going to be on this countdown indefinitely, so I'd highly recommend you guys picking her up, and I also think Riot love this champion too, which also helps. But beating all of these champions, guys, to number 1 on the top laners countdown for 12.7 is another hole breaker abuser here. And because of all the quality of life buffs and all the bug fixes in recent times, Yorick has been digging everyone's grave. And just like I said, on top of the bug fixes and all of those quality of life buffs, hole breaker is probably the biggest reason why. You can rush this item, so unlike Trundle, who's going Trinity Force or Divine Sunderer first, you are going hole breaker first on Yorick. This makes you impossible to beat in the side lane, and you have such amazing scaling, so even if you don't have the best early game in the world, if the enemy champions don't deal with you, and if the enemy champions don't build correctly against you, it is very hard to deal with a Yorick permanently split pushing with his Maiden and his hole breaker. Just be sure if you are going to play Yorick to take approach velocity in the inspiration tree as your secondary tree, because this works really nicely with your E. So if you can land your Morning Mist, which will slow them, you will gap close to the enemy champion quicker, so you can trap them in your W and just get lots of damage off and probably kill them. Just be sure to run Ignite, because teleport, it might be useful, but we first have to kill the enemy champion who's matching us in the side lane to pose a threat. So that's why Ignite just trumps TP. So those were the 10 best top laners, guys, for 12.7. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you did enjoy it, remember to leave a like down below, and I will see you until tomorrow's daily Season 12 upload. This has been Coach E.